This is Splash, a free arts workshop based in Chattanooga, Tennessee. These videos are a series of remote art classes for youth and can be found on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Number 62, Landscape in Watercolor.
Hello, 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 everybody. How's it going? Good morning, good morning. I hope you're doing great this morning. I hope you're doing well. This is Splash Art Class, and I'm your artist for today, Charlie Newton. And we welcome you back for another art lesson. And so, without any further ado, let's get started. So let's rehatch what we've been doing. So the first thing we did was we did a sketch in pencil using only two pencils. Remember, in art class, I'm always trying to challenge you. So by limiting this sketch to two pencils, we had to pull as much from the lead as possible. And, in the future, we'll do something where we use maybe 3 or 4 pencils or even more if we're doing a large piece. Matter of fact, that's a good idea to do something like that. So we sketched this landscape and in black and white. And what we did was we thought about the value changes or the different gradations in the picture, black and white. Then the last couple of classes, we did it in color pencil. And we used a very smooth paper as opposed to this 90-pound watercolor paper that we sketched on at first. You can see that it's sort of brittle. You can see the texture of the paper. So paper is very important. But I want you to see what watercolor pencils, not watercolor pencils, but colored pencils looked like on smooth hot press paper. So now we're going to do the same landscape in watercolors. And I've been debating whether to just paint it or whether to sketch it. But since we've been using pencils, we're going to sketch it. So first, find you a hard lead pencil, a pencil with an H on it, an HB, a 2H, or whatever, as long as it has H on it. If you don't have drawing pencils, then you can use a regular 2B pencil that you use in school. The reason why we want a pencil with a hard lead is because we want to sketch lightly. And normally what we would do is spray the sketch before we started painting, but we're not going to do that this time. Tradition says that you would sketch it with a pencil. That's very traditional. And we're just going to sketch the same scene. And so it's not going to look exactly like the other sketches, but let's see what happens. So the first thing we did is we started maybe a little less than 1/3 of the paper. 1, 2, 3, a little less than 1/3 of the paper. And we just drew an horizon line. We drew a horizon line just straight across so that we would know where this horizon line is. But we're going to change it. Then above that, let's draw a hill shape, sort of like a triangle, one side of a triangle. This side is flat. It just kind of circles down like that. And behind that hill, we just drew another horizon line that's in the far distance. You see I'm sketching, so I'm making different lines. I can choose which line I'm actually going to use later. Then what we did was we changed this horizon line and made it slope so it looks more realistic. It's not just a field that's straight across. You don't have to do this, but we put this slope in here for fun. And you can't, when you look at the picture, you can't really tell that this is sloping. Okay. Okay, so it's around there somewhere. And now let's draw the trees. So we're just going to sketch the circles, and we'll do the details with paint. So we did one large circle here. Then we did a large circle behind that first circle. It's taller. This circle is taller, and so this represents trees, but these trees are behind that one. Then behind this tree are some trees that's a little bit shorter, and then we have some trees off in the distance as well. So every time we draw this picture, it changes slightly, and that's okay. Then we're using triangles for trees. So we draw a half a triangle on this left-hand corner. Sorry if I'm going too fast. I'm going to slow down. What happens is when you draw things more than once, it's just, you can draw it without even thinking. So this is what we're trying to get to. So you notice these trees are more triangular shaped, where this grove of trees, you see more circles. So that's why it's so important to see the circles, triangles, and squares. So a half a triangle here on the left-hand corner. Now we're going to do another triangle, and we're sketching lightly. We're going to paint over these, and then we're going to do another tall triangle here by itself. Now, I'm thinking what I could do is I could erase these lines. I probably will. And I'm going to suggest you erase the lines that we don't need. So let's go in here. And the line that's behind the trees, from this little bit in the background, the lay of land in the background, you can erase that line. You can erase those lines in between these trees. You don't have to, but I don't want you to get lost. Sometimes when you're painting, it's easy to get lost. I use my gum, my kneaded eraser, but you can use an art gum. It doesn't matter. And there's a little pond in the foreground. So remember, the lower you are on the page, the closer the object appears to be. So we're going to do a real skinny triangle here for that pond. Then I'm just going to think about some of these shapes of the trees, indicate those. And I've been trying to decide if we should sketch the clouds in the sky, and I think we should. So I'm going to start here and sketch lightly, very lightly, these clouds. So I'm going to let the cloud form come around like this. That cloud's going to be in the background. Now I'm going to do some clouds in front of this one. I'm going to sketch it. Now when we start painting, there's going to be a possibility of smearing some of these lines. So we have to be very careful when we start painting. So there's a grouping of clouds here. And then in the background, behind that cloud, maybe there's some clouds here. And maybe I'll do some clouds over here, some cumulus clouds. So like I say, you'll notice it changes slightly. And I'm going to tape the picture down. It makes sense to, since we're going to wet the paper with the watercolors, to sort of tape down the corners or the sides, especially the sides. Now, usually we would just run tape around the sides all the way around, but I'm not doing it this time. Sometimes the paper can tend to buckle. I have to remember to take this tape up. I don't want the tape to go over too far into the picture, because it's going to leave a white space there. So when we take the tape off, you have to look at it and see if you need to paint over the area that you taped. So these are the basic shapes. Let's draw some circles for the trees, in the trees. So the trees are not circles, they're shapes. There are oval shapes inside the tree. Let's draw those ovals, those circles. And there's one circle here in the middle. So 1, 2, 3. And you can do a circle here, circle there. We just want to change the shape of these trees. And I'm drawing the circles so that you can see there's a tree in front right here. So that when we're painting, we'll follow these circles, these lumps and bumps. You look for the same thing when you're drawing a figure, by the way. You look for the lumps and bumps. Same thing when you're drawing a face. So you're looking for the way that the line undulates and changes and moves. Okay. So that's the drawing. So normally we would probably just spray this and then come back in about 10 or 15 minutes after this it has dried and paint. But traditionally speaking, you don't have to do that. Now, I usually start from the background first, but I would say get a round brush. This is a sablette, a wash brush. Get a round. This is a number 14. You may not have one that size, and that's fine. You can get one this size. Matter of fact, I think I will get one this size because that's probably the size that you have. Get a soft, make sure it's soft, make sure that paint is not already in the brush. So you may want to clean your brush. And what I want to do is the yellow first because it makes sense to do the lighter colors first. So with watercolors, we're doing a lot of overlays, or you could call them glazing or overlays. And as you can see, my palette is real. I haven't cleaned this palette, so I'm not going to use that. So I'm just going to use this little paper, the small paper plate as a palette. So dip your paintbrush in yellow. And what I want to do is paint the highlights that I believe that's going to be in the picture, wherever those highlights go. And so first I'm going to look at the landscape. So this little part behind here, I'm going to highlight that in yellow. And I may go back with white or something, or lighter yellow. Wherever the light is hitting the trees, see these little circles? These are little bunches or round like shapes that the sunlight might hit. The light is coming in from the back right hand side. So the front of the trees are in shadow. So when you're painting landscapes, make sure that everything doesn't go flat. And by painting the light, that's a good way to make sure things don't go flat. Then I'm going to put in some yellow here. These triangles, I'm going to do away with these triangle shapes here. Okay, it just let me know basically where everything is. And we're going to use a stippling for that. Now I can do, this is a dry brush technique I'm using here. And the reason why, and a dry brush is that, okay, I dip my brush in the paint, then I take the paint off the brush so that the brush is not dripping with paint. The brush is basically dry. And then when I put the paint down, it's going to leave some white areas. That kind of looks like grass, and that's why I'm doing it like that. Now, remember we say try to do the entire picture at once, especially when you're painting. So what I'm going to do now is remember, every time you change colors, shake your brush off in water. Shake it off in water, get you a rag or something, and then you test it to see if the brush is clean. I'm looking at the brush. This brush is clean, so I can still use this brush. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I'm going to do it this time, though. I'm not. That's a technique I always use when I paint the sky. I'm not going to use it this time because it's sort of like just something that I do. You may not need to do that. Now I'm going to get blue for the sky. I'm going to be careful that the blue don't mix with the yellow. You always want watercolors to look like water. So you want to use the medium itself to enhance your picture. So I'm starting light. I remember the clouds that I painted. So these are clouds here. So this part would be the sky. Now, I'm going to just add water to this sky to make the sky a little lighter. See? So I just put water on my brush. And I can spread the paint that's already. I need more water. I'm shaking the brush off. I don't need no more paint here. I can just use water to spread the paint and sort of makes the sky. I may put other colors in the sky because maybe there's a rain cloud coming, but I build to dark, go from light to dark. Now, the nice thing with watercolor is that you can really paint clouds, enhance your clouds or your sky. And okay, what I'm going to do, so I just dip my brush into the blue. I don't want to touch this paper with this blue that's on the brush, because what's going to happen is this. It's going to be that dark. I don't want it to be that dark. So I'm going to shake the brush off a little bit in the water. Now, hopefully, now I can test it. I can test it on my plate to see how much. Okay, that's okay. So the water allows the thin down paint, allows the paper to show through. So I'm paying close attention to how thick or thin the paint is in my brush. And remember, go from light to dark with watercolors. You can always make something darker, but it's difficult to make something lighter. So I like how this is going, and I'm going to bring some of this darker blue down into the sky. This looks like water, and that's the beauty of watercolor. I may even use a different shade of blue just for fun. And I'm going to put some blue down here in this area that might be a pond. Now, watch what can happen. If I want clouds in the background, I can just allow the paint to do that for me. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use dark blue to paint shadows under the clouds. Now this blue is a little bit too thick, but that's okay. I can spread it. I just dipped my brush in the water and took some blue off of my brush. I'm just going to try to draw some dark clouds here. You have to be careful though that you don't let it dry. If I let this dry, now I have too much water in my brush and I know that, but I'm going to spread this around a little bit. Now this is, see, I'm going to take some of this blue up here and put it over here. Now we're going to try to leave the paper white for the clouds. This little area in here is going to be sky, so I'm going to go ahead and paint that blue. We're going to use purple and other colors as well. So this little dark area here is going to be the darkest blue in the sky. I need to blend this. I don't like how hard that is. This line, this edge is. I'm going to try to get rid of that edge. I dip my brush in the water. I'm going back here into the blue. See if I can soften that and bring the blue on down. So I'm always thinking about the end goal here, you know, what is it going to look like? And, you know, play around with it. I want this to be a little darker. I'm using the tip of my brush. There's enough blue on there. This is what's hard to get kids to understand, is that you are in control. But you have to slow your mind down a little bit. And painting gets to be like meditation. I'm talking to you, but normally when I'm painting it, nobody's around. I'm going to make the sky darker. So you can see the difference. So I'm going to make this part up here a little darker. But I don't want to go too dark because this is a watercolor. And it brings its own language. So I let the watercolor speak. It's really your mind, and when you focusing, when you start to focus, you get into a zone. And that's why in art class we don't do a lot of talking, unless sometimes we talk when we're trying to help each other. You can talk in art class when you're trying to help each other. That's fine. Okay, so I think I may even do some dark blues here. And how do you know you want to do that? I don't know. Instinct. So sometimes you just have to try things. It comes to your mind, try it. So what? It's not finished until you say it's finished, because you're the artist. Of course, in art class, a little bit different, but you know, let's not take things too seriously. Now I want to use an orange, I think, and a brown. So try to use the same colors that you have. I'm going to put my orange right there. And you know, right now I'm using one color at a time. That's a bright orange, but we can darken it later. I'm looking for an ochre, so I'm going to have to mix a brown in this. So I'm very careful about where I'm putting this orange. But I'm thinking about dirt now, because I don't want the dirt just to be brown. I want it to vary in color. Now I can dip my brush in the brown. So I'm using, these are the paints that Splash students have. So I'm using these same colors. Now I'm very conscious. I'm putting this, I'm going to just put the brown right here. And I can allow it to go into the orange a little bit. Put a little brown here. This shows some depth. It makes it look like this pond. It's there. Now I'm going to shake my brush off in the water. I'm going to pat it a little bit. Get some brown. Dip in the brown. Then I'm going to take the brown off the brush. I'm trying to get a dry brush. Trying a dry brush technique. Hopefully it'll look more like earth. Now, I'm actually going to use a little white. Well, I'm going to use a little white. I'm putting white on my brush. You may not have white. Don't worry about it if you don't. I want to brighten up this background a little bit, this hill back here. So I'm going over it with white. You can just go over it with thin paint. Just wanted to brighten it up a little bit. So I probably won't use white again since you probably don't have white. Usually if you want white, you need a 24 10. For instance, this 10 is 6. I'm sorry, 12. And this 10 would be 24. So this is 8. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, this is 8. So that means this is 16. So a double 10. Kind of like this. This one is a double 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is 12. But still it has, I don't know if white was there or not. Excuse me. Now let's find a green. Let's use a regular green. We can use this green here. So we've used the brown, the blue, and the yellow, and we're going to use green, and we may use more blue, and we may use purple, but we could use black. I don't know. But let's start with green. And I strongly suggest using your palette so that you sort of can gauge how much water is in my brush. I don't want this much water in this brush. I want this green to go on pretty heavy. But I want the green to mix with the yellow to make a lighter green. Now think trees. You're going to paint the way you think. So if I'm thinking these are trees, I'm actually going to stipple. And you see how the dryness of the brush, you notice I'm splattering paint and stuff. That's okay. The dryness of the brush, the ends of the brush make that look more like trees or bushes. I'm not going to cover up all the yellow because that's where the light is hitting. So I'm being very careful. I'm still allowing the paint to show me, the picture to show me what it wants to be. So I know this green is going to be darker, but you have to start somewhere. So we do a lot of overlays and glazing. If your brush is too wet, then it's going to come to a point. I don't want my brush actually to be at a point right now. I'm thinking about the edge of these trees. It wouldn't be smooth, you know, it would seem like leaves. So this stippling technique, I'm just dabbing the ends of the brush hairs, see? This stippling technique enhances the feeling of leaves. Now I'm going to want this green to be darker. I can go back with red over the green. I don't know which one I'm going to do. I'll probably do brown. I'm trying not to do black because black, you know, I could do black. Now I need this part to be smoother, so I can allow more water to be in my brush here. If you have too much water in your brush, it's difficult. It's hard to control. I'm drawing the line. There's some bushes here. And these grove of trees are just going to be green and yellow right now. And then we're going to go back with a darker green. Let's do these trees to the side here. Remember, they are more triangular shape, these trees here. 1, 2. Look at my brush. That's how I want my brush to be. And so when I do the stippling, look, it looks like a Christmas tree. And then this tree here is a strange shape. Okay, so I'm trying to decide if I'm going to use, okay, we'll use black. So with your brush, we're going to need the point of the brush. I need a dark green. So if I mix black with the green, see, that's too black. Remember, clean your brush in between, especially when you use black, clean your brush off good before you dip your brush into the paint. So I don't like using black, and in class we don't use black because black is so hard to control. We could have used brown. But see, I'm trying to get a dark green like that, a dark green. I don't want this black, I want a dark green. So the more green, since this was too black, I went and put more green in the black. So what I did was, since this is too black, I'm trying not to put my brush in this part here. I can put it on the edge. I can dip my brush on the edge and mix it there. But if I put my brush here, it just, everything's going to turn black. So this is what I want. Now, if I want more green, I'm not going to dip this brush into this paint because it has black in it. I will have to clean my brush and then dip it into the paint. So I want to use the point of my brush here to draw the shadows, to paint the shadows. I'm still using the stippling technique. You know, something we're doing different on this one than we did with the drawing. I need some dark color, so I dip my brush in the black. We haven't drawn the tree trunks. And really, it's easier to draw the tree trunks or to paint the tree trunks after this part has dried. So the light's coming from the rear right-hand side. So this part of the trees are in shadow. Now this yellow is not, I'm not going to leave all this yellow here. But I don't need to deal with that yet. I'm just painting shadows. I'm thinking shadows now. the part of the picture where there's not a lot of light. And actually, when I paint the black over the green turns to a darker green as well. But I'm spreading the paint. Don't think of yourself as coloring. Think of yourself as painting. Think of it as painting. Actually, watercolors, we think of it as drawing, but don't think of it as coloring, because we're blending and doing overlays. So let me show you this. So what I want to do is, I don't want this yellow to be so bright, these highlights, so I can go back. I'm going to put some more green on my palette, mix it a little bit with the dark green. I'm just going to try to soften these yellows a little bit. Remember, if the palette is wet, if the picture is wet, you can spread the paint that's already on the paper. Now, what I want to do is, I need some yellow. I'm going back with some yellow. In some areas. So I'm putting yellow on my brush. Now I could wait till it dries, but I want to do whatever you feel. Now let's get a smaller brush now. Small round brush, a smaller one. Maybe something like that. And paint the trees over here using the dark green. This is sort of dry. I'm going to dip the brush in the water, re-wet the paint, and paint the shadows, leaving some green to show that the light is hitting the right hand side of the trees. Now what I've done, you may have done this too. You see this white area here? I got to get rid of that. So I'm going to go back and get my brown and my yellow, reconstituted by putting water on my brush, and just sort of paint that in. We don't want to leave any white areas. Now with a small brush, get your smallest brush. If you are a splash student, with your paint tins, you have a brush like this. So get that brush and let's paint this tree. This tree right here. Let's just use brown, thick brown. So don't put a lot of water in your brush. I want the paint to be thick so you can make a line. You can test it on your paper plate. So I want to be able to almost like write with the paint, if I was trying to write my name. So I want the paint pretty thick. Paint the tree from the bottom to the top. So look at where your brush is going. Now, how did I get this little thin part here? I got that by lifting my brush off the paper. So I'm making the line. Now I'm lifting my brush up to the point. Now I'm just painting with the point here. The point is barely touching. I'm not pressing down on the paper. I'm trying to keep my brush off the paper, just barely touch with the point to paint these little branches. See how I'm lifting my brush off the paper? You can see the fact that, barely touching, very gentle, like my teacher used to say, ever so slightly, just ever so slightly. Now I'm going to go back, since I like how that's going. Let's paint some branches over here. Maybe this is dry enough to do that, maybe not, I don't know. I'll tell you what, let's just paint some little things coming out of that. That's too much water in my brush. So remember, I said you have to pay attention to what you're doing. So I'm going to go down here and just paint this the edge of this pond with brown. Now, maybe there's a tree trunk going this way. Maybe see a branch here and there. We're going to go back with a lighter color too. Maybe there's a large branch up here you can see. This is a grove of trees, remember? I'm just using brown right now. Have some trees going this way, some branches, some tree trunks going that way. Just indicating. If I do some little marks at the bottom here, look like there's a bunch of trees in the background. You don't know how many trees there are. And I'm going to go back with black and darken some of this. Also, I'm going to go back with a lighter color. So let's clean this. Brush. Let's go back to your round brush, the larger round brush. Dry it off. Remember, I stuck the brushes in the water. I place the brushes in the water when I'm not using them. I don't just lay the brush down. That's a bad habit that you don't want to get into, laying the brush down, because if you're using a different type of paint, you will ruin your brush. So I want to do a dry brush with this green. I want green and yellow. I don't really want the dark green, but I want a lighter green to go across the ground here. So I'm just going to put some green here in my palette. I don't care if a little bit of this orange get mixed up with the green or the blue, but I don't want the black and the green. Clean the brush off, and I could have placed the yellow there first. While cleaning my brush off, you see, I'm making sure that all the green is out of my brush before I dip this brush into yellow paint, because I want my paints to stay clean. And you can see here on my palette, and you have to watch things like this, kids. I know that this could be a problem here, this orange that fell over into this yellow here. So I'm just going to wipe it off. I suggest you wipe it off. What I had been doing is just making sure I didn't dip my brush into it. But when you see your colors begin to get dirty, know that that can affect your painting. So I'm going to get some yellow. Mix it with the green. I want a light green. I'm going to mix a lot of yellow with the green so there's cover this area. Remember, it's easy to go darker. When the yellow hits this blue that's already on my plate, it turns green too. So I want a dry brush, so I'm trying to get some paint off my brush. I have my brush to the side, and let's just kind of run it across here. Barely touch the paper. Horizontal, just run it from left to right. See, I splattered some paint here. Actually, I splattered some black paint, so I have to really be careful. I don't worry about things like that too much because I remember I'm in control. It's my picture, it's my painting, it's your picture. So you are in control. I could take this and just wipe some of the black up by dipping in the water. See, I can wipe some of that up. Or I can use it. Or I can use these little dots. Don't matter. We're just painting. Just have fun. The main thing is to have fun. Don't get uptight about your arts. Okay? Just have fun. Because usually, again, you're making art by yourself. You know, sometimes I know when you're in school or in class or in art camp, you know, your friends and you like to laugh, and nothing wrong with laughing, but don't take anything seriously. Don't take anything too seriously. See, as I'm using these techniques, I'm trying to barely touch the paper, but I don't want to leave white in places that it don't work. But I want this to look like a field. I want this side of the field to get a little darker, so I can, I might put a little brown, use some of this brown and orange that's already on the palette, and see what happens. Now I want some darker green, so I'm going to get this green, mix it with this brown or orange. It don't matter. You see how that makes the green darker? I want this to dry because we're going to do a little sketch at the bottom. Let's bring these trees, the color of those trees, down into this little pond here. Leave some blue, leave some brown. And this can actually, you can use the dark green, it don't matter. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this large brush here. And going to mix some more dark green. Dark green, put some black here. Then I'm going to clean my brush off. I don't know why I keep going for the black first. Because I want it to be dark. I want this to be very dark. I do know why I do it. This is by instinct. So I'm getting a little green mixing with the black. I want it to look black because I want these shadows to be darker. But I'm using the big brush, but I'm being very careful. So maybe there's a shadow here. There's some shadows. I'm using the tip of the brush. Look at this. So in my mind, this is a real place, okay? I'm going to use the tip of my brush to indicate a branch. And like in the other picture, there might be some trees or bushes that you can see over this hill. I'm going to put those in there like that. So using this black, I'm being careful, very careful now. See where the shadows are? I'm just going to make them a little bit darker. I'm thinking grove of trees, and it's really dark under here. I'm leaving some green. I'm using the point of this brush. It's a dark, very dark green here. But when the black mixes with the green, it's going to look like a dark green. So my picture has already left some shapes, so I'm using those shapes to my advantage. What I've done before, I have left some shapes on here, circular shapes. So I'm using those, letting bits and pieces stand out. I'm looking very close. I'm looking very close, and I can see these shapes. I'm gonna mix some green with this black, some more green, because I don't want it to go this flat black. And there's some shapes that's already here that the brush has made. I'm just enhancing those to use them to my advantage. You may not see those, but look at your picture and you see some shape. You'll see shapes there. And you can use those. Now, I'm going to put more green on this black to make it lighter. I'm just going to, I don't know, do some little dabs here. Put some dark green in the pond. Okay. We're going to do two more things and we'll be done. The first thing, I'm going back to the sky. I'm cleaning my brush off. I want to put some purple in the sky. So we have some purple here on our palette. I'm going to mix this purple with the blue. See? Purple. I'm just going to go over some areas of the sky to make these clouds. And my brush is wet. I'm not doing a dry brush here. I'm doing a wet brush. I'm allowing the blue to mix with the purple. I just want to go back over and darken some areas on these clouds. The purple is thin. Can you see that? The purple is thin. And it's thin because I'm putting more paint in the brush. I just dip my brush in the water, see? Now I can spread the purple like that. Just want to put some purple in this sky here. Kind of haphazard. I keep dipping the brush in the water because remember, watercolors should look like water. That's a rule. It don't have to, but that's a rule. My brush hit that green by mistake. No problem. Just go back over it with purple. I'm going to put some purple up here over this blue. And now get your little small brush. And at the bottom of the picture, we're finishing the picture up now. Just, I'm going to dip it in the brown and green. So just going to make some little marks. There's some little flowers down here. I'm going to make some little marks, little hash marks or whatever. That may be the stalks. Now I'm going to dip my brush in the green. These could be leaves. I'm using thick paint. See? So I'm pressing and lifting. I'm pressing and lifting to make the shape of leaves, and I'm using thick paint. Pressing and lifting. That one didn't come out too good. It's okay. Now I'm going to get some colors. See the yellow here? Thick paint. Get some yellow. Maybe these are wildflowers, so maybe there's some yellow in some places. The thicker the paint, the easier you can see it. It's hard to see this one. Purple. Oops. It's kind of thick. Anyway, I'm thinking wildflower. How about red? I had too much These are some real big flowers, aren't they? Now, after the paint dries, you can go back with the yellow and you'll be able to see it better. After the water dries a little bit on here. So just some little things. Then when you finish, I want you to sign your picture. Oh, let's do a blue. Let's do some little blue colors. So remember, watercolor can look wet. It's okay. Put your initials on your picture. Now put your name. I'm putting my initials. Put your name on the paper and your age. Well, that does it for today. We're going to have to get out of here and leave you today. I hope you had fun. You can always replay this and repaint your picture and just keep painting until it's finished. It has been fun. This has been Splash. I'm your artist, Charlie Newton. And remember, as always, art is for everyone. Keep painting. Bye-bye.